Man, there's a disaster going on in Detroit, man, for the car makers. So, with workers being laid off and a disaster with, cars that can't sell, is this the end for Detroit? Is this the end for the American car industry? That's the question I'm going to help you answer in this video. And of course, we're looking at the breaking news that's happening in Detroit with Ram and Jeep and some other car makers, not able to actually sell out their inventories. And this is affecting pretty much the entire car industry. It's not just these particular American brands. Even when you look at the other truck makers like Tesla with their Cybertruck, there's a lot of inventory out there, and it's pretty easy to go out there and just find a Cybertruck for sale, which tells you that they produced a lot of these trucks, and now the market is awash with them. But sadly for the heavy truck makers, it seems like none of them is really able to really sell out the inventory and have super strong sales, and there are a lot of things to blame. So let's look at where the problem is happening. So when you look at Stellantis, the owner of Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, some classic American brands, are now owned, of course, by a European company. One of the things is obviously that they don't understand the American car market nearly as well as an American company like Ford might do. So you do have to look at that. Tesla is run really well, and they've kind of figured out the American truck market with the Cybertruck, but even that is not necessarily like selling out like bananas, right? Like might have happened with earlier Tesla car models. So the truck market, which is very popular, an American staple, seems to be tricky. So one of the things is just understanding, understanding the market, understanding the American car consumer. So that's one. And then you get into number two, a number two problem for Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, which is and probably for all truck makers in general, which is the inflation problem. So there's a little bit of a, probably more than a little bit, a big inflation problem, because prices for a lot of things have gone up. And when you look at what a truck used to cost for these car manufacturers maybe 20 or 30 years ago, and then you extrapolate that in inflation adjusted terms to today, some of these trucks should be costing more than what they are costing today. So that's one. But the other thing is, with the consumer experiencing a lot of inflation, wage growth has not necessarily gone up nearly as high or as far as it would take to be able to comfortably afford those cars. And so I think there's a big structural problem right there in the economy, in the market, which of course is going to affect these car makers, because they're selling a high ticket, a high priced item. These cars are costing, like if you look at the new models for like Ram and some of these brands, some of the really big trucks are going for like anywhere from like $60,000 base to like $120,000 or more for some of the top end, right? Some of the top end models. So you do need to look into that. Like, inflation is a big problem, because for these car makers, maybe that's actually probably below where they need to be priced at to be fully in line with inflation when you look at historical prices like 40 years ago. But at the same time, the modern day worker today feels like paying 120K, 100 grand for a truck, when at their job maybe their wages have only gone up a tiny percentage, so they've gone actually down when you account for inflation, and now they're having to shell out for these trucks and pay a lot of money, they're not really able to do it. And so, that's a big factor right there. That inflation right there is gonna cause a lot of dislocation, and now it's affecting these Detroit car makers. And then number three is just the luxury brand. When you look at buying a truck for 120 G's, guys, that's a lot of money, right? Like even if you work in Silicon Valley, that might be your entire year's salary right there. You are not talking about buying any food or paying any rent or anything else, just buying a truck, right? It shouldn't cost that much. But of course, maybe we look at this as like a luxury brand. But if you're buying a Ram truck as a luxury brand, or a Jeep, 4x4, a Dodge, where a lot of these problems are happening, where these cars are not able to sell. Now, if you're buying that as a luxury brand, a classic strategy that luxury brands actually use is they carefully manage supply in light of where the demand is. So if you are running a luxury brand, you're not gonna produce a full allotment that meets all the demand in the market. You're only gonna supply a tiny percentage of the existing demand in the market. So you can see this with like Rolex or Gucci or any of those luxury brands. Or Koenigsegg, a car luxury brand, or Bugatti or Ferrari. Ferrari is never gonna dump like 500,000 cars into the market. They're gonna make like a limited edition something and call it like the Senna this that GT model, something cool like that. Like they'll make like a historic, kind of inspired special edition model, and maybe there's only gonna be like if it's super historic, it's gonna be crazy. It might be like, oh, there's only 2 of these in North America, by the way. Something like that. So then it might go for like each of these is like a 2 million, type thing. But what this does is that all those rich billionaires, in the Middle East, in North America, in Asia, everywhere else around the world that want one, they know like there's literally only 15 of these that have been produced worldwide, or like only 10. So they know if you want it, you gotta go in and get it. And so when these cars hit the market, they're quickly gonna sell out, right? You can't find them on the market no more. You have to actually buy them in the resale market, but you have to go to the guy that has it, and he's gonna like mark it up because this is limited edition. You can't get, so these things actually appreciate in value over time. So apply that to the truck market. If these brands like Ram were treating their trucks as a luxury brand, then they really should have limited supply and known that the market is awash in trucks right now. So we're not gonna produce like a ton of these trucks. We're gonna carefully limit and maybe only supply half of the allotment that the market wants. And then put production into other things. Like they could be looking at where does the market have a lot more demand and kind of shift. Like maybe let's look at like SUVs, let's look at sedans, let's look at other types of car models. So that might have saved them at this particular time, but they apparently didn't do that. So you need to look at that. That's definitely a factor. And so there are a lot of factors behind why they ended up in this position. Now, are they gonna necessarily go out of business? These car companies, these car brands, the Detroit brands. Look back to, it wasn't that long ago when Detroit had to be rescued again in the Obama years, and now it looks like there are kind of signs that this is happening again. I mean, Stellantis, the owner of Dodge and Ram, is actually laid off 2,500 workers recently, in light of these problems that they're having. So that's very serious right there, because that's affecting a lot of workers, and it's actually gonna affect the brands as well, because some of the historic brands that they have been producing, some of the historic models are gonna be affected in this. Like they're gonna lose some of the people that had been working on those models. So this is a big problem. Like it's gonna remake the car industry. And but if they can manage it on their own, I guess they wouldn't necessarily need like a bailout. But when this kind of thing starts happening, don't discount it entirely. This is just something to watch. That Detroit is in trouble. um, but is this the end of the American car brands? Of course not. I mean, um, it's that kind of problem that can be worked out, and I'm sure the government would be ready to step in to help rescue them if they ended up needing some help down the line. So that's what I have for you guys today. And if you need some resources to help you grow your own business, you can check out some of my free downloads. The links will be in the description.